Right, having painted one individual snowdrop without using masking fluid, I now want to move on to painting little clusters of snowdrops. This one's going to be a small painting, but I've drawn out a few others as well, which could be scaled down to the size of a card, which in spring and Easter approaching could be a lovely thing to do. So these ones, I'm going to mask out the snowdrops in all of them, giving me scope to try out a variety of different backgrounds. So to begin with the masking, I usually keep mine in a small bottle with a square base so that it doesn't tip over as easily as some of the plastic bottles. It's important not to shake the bottle, give it a stir to mix the contents. And if you're going to use a brush, it's handy to have a little jar with dishwashing liquid in, diluted in water, in order to rinse the brush occasionally. Otherwise, the masking fluid builds up in the brush, solidifies, and ruins your brush. So I'm applying the masking fluid. I reload my brush quite frequently to make sure that the masking fluid is going on thickly enough. And if you do rinse your brush, make sure to dry it afterwards, otherwise you're going to be adding liquid into your jar of masking fluid and it'll become watery. So do you see there, I keep reloading so that the masking fluid is thick enough. And try to keep your hand as steady as possible, because if you get a little bit of a tremor or a wobble, you'll get a jagged edge. The other tool I use a lot is the ruling pen, because for a start it doesn't need cleaning. You can see I just pick off the dried masking fluid, but you can adjust the thickness of your line. So I can get a very, very fine line like that. Also, I can use it as a pen just to tidy up this edge if I get in there quickly before this begins to dry. I can actually adjust the distance between the two arms so I can get a thicker line. Let's go thicker than that. And then just use this here. And I'm going to continue now applying masking fluid to cover all of these snowdrops which I've drawn. I haven't bothered with leaves because I'm going to be adding them in when I do the background. Just closing that up to get this fine line here, which I can't see. I don't think there was any masking fluid. That's better. And I'm going to continue with that, and it needs to dry thoroughly before we come anywhere near it with paint. In this exercise, I want to indicate some texture at the base to imply that these snowdrops are growing in perhaps woodland leaf litter or amongst bark chippings in a garden. So I'm going to start with a soft wash at the top. This is a mixture of blue and green. It's actually cobalt blue and sap green, which is quite a soft background colour. Usually I would mix greens from blue and yellow. There are very few greens straight from a tube which are pleasant. But sap green, for example, can be modified by the addition of a cool colour like one of the blues, or a warm colour such as a gold like quinacridone gold, or burnt sienna, perhaps even violet. So that's quite a watery wash there. And then I'm going to use a thicker wash of burnt sienna mixed in with that cobalt blue, because this is going to be my soil area. And I'm allowing it to touch the damp wash above so that it blends smoothly. I don't actually want a straight horizontal line, So perhaps I'll blend that up a little further, making it more atmospheric. And then we'll come into the more earthy colours down at the bottom, thickening up the paint. That's really quite significantly thick. This cobalt blue and burnt sienna combination is a very useful colour combination because it's very natural looking. You can drive it towards the grey by adding more of the blue, or you could drive it towards a more a warmer shade by adding more of the burnt sienna. Actually, this is quite thick, so I'm able even to get a few shapes in. But I'm probably about to destroy them with what I'm going to do, which is to take some tissue paper, crush it, and apply some crumpled tissue paper over this base section. And that's going to be left to dry for a while, not entirely, because there is the risk that the tissue paper will stick to the paint. Now it's going to remove a lot of this paint. We're going to end up with a very much lighter tone than what was applied. As always, to be very careful to mop up any surplus liquid around the edges of the painting, otherwise it is likely to flow back in when you don't want it. Okay, and that needs a few moments to settle, and we'll see what happens. You can see here what has come off on the tissue paper when I removed it. So a lot of paint has been lifted, leaving a very subtle paler color, but it's actually made really beautiful textures. And I can now continue to work on this. First off, before removing the masking fluid, I could add in some leaves, just loosely, using whatever green one would like. I've just gone to my green palette there and just, there we go. So if we run some of these through, I don't want to obscure all this beautiful background though, but perhaps just not too much, but suggesting some leaves. Let's have one running up there. Okay. And then once that's dry, I can remove the masking fluid just by carefully peeling it back. Now you do need to be sure that your surface is completely dry before you try to remove masking fluid. And there we are ready to paint our snowdrops.